Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Neal, and this is the nitty-gritty of modern caregiving. I just wanted to take a second to say a heartfelt thank you to our growing community of listeners and viewers here in the United States, but also across the globe. Germany, you are strong. We see you. Singapore, Finland, beloved Bermuda, the UK, Japan, arigato darimashita, Norway, Argentina, Kenya, Trinidad and Tobago, Canada, and South Africa. Caregivers, look at that. We are in this together. Wherever you are not alone. Okay, let's get into it. Here's Season 1, Episode 6. Today's special guest is actress and caregiver Antoinette Green Fisher. Perhaps you've seen her on TV.
They warned me about this.
Warned you about what, Miss Mary?
The money. This is millions more.
If you look at the overall fiscal budget, this can only come from schools, rec centers, and after-school programs.
Those are my babies. It can't come from my babies. Fine cuts.
Crime is spilling out all over the city, and we've got to focus. And while we are grateful for the efforts of Commissioner Davis and his team, we need to move forward in a new direction. Commissioner Darryl D'Souza.
Alan could build a life here.
Vera.
You convinced me to let him go away.
If we could
I
just...
forgot to tell Alan we're out of cream. I think I'm gonna go make a list.
While Antoinette emotes the emotions of her characters' lives, it's the drama of her own life, her own losses, that we're going to be talking about today. You see, Antoinette first spotted signs of change in her husband when he was just in his early 50s, surfacing at the peak of his career, the peak of their relationship. Time, as it does, has helped her to step back and take a more pragmatic view. And now she's ready to share some of the more practical lessons that she learned about being prepared and protecting yourself legally. We have a lot to talk about, but first, we begin today, as we always do, with a moment of self-care. I need it as much as you do. And thanks to a group called A Beautiful Chorus, we're going to exhale together. Ready? Okay, here we go. Breathe it in, let it out, breathe it in, let it go. Breathe it in, let it out, breathe it in, let it go. Breathe it in, let it out, breathe it in, let it go. Breathe it in. All right, now that we are centered and grounded, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Antoinette, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Tracy. I'm so happy to be joining you.
So what we're going to talk about is a tough subject. It is dementia, but dementia when it hits early on in life and you still have a world ahead of you, or you think you do, and all of a sudden things change. So we really appreciate you sharing your story because, you know, a lot of people are going through this and will be going through this, and hopefully this can help make it a little easier.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go back. I want to know about your husband, Jamie, how you met. You were, 14, 15 years old. Your mom had a candy store and you saw a cute boy. Tell me about
Yes.
that.
It was funny because he was in military school. That's the first time I seen him really in the neighborhood because my brother was older. He was 19 months older. So all his friends were like 2 years older than me. So I was the dorky 14-year-old, I guess. But I was riding my Stingray bicycle.
Your bike with the handlebars up.
And I went riding up and I rode up on them and I was like, hey, you gonna introduce to your friend? And he introduced me. Not that he paid me any attention. We used to go to the parties in the neighborhood and we see each other around. I think all the girls had a crush on Jamie. Jamie was a dark-skinned guy with a big afro. So we all hung out. And then he went away to Morgan and to go to college. We always at that point had stayed friends. So we used to write each other, send each other cards. I went to high school of fashion. Don't ask me why Fashion High decided to take a trip to Morgan. Me and my girlfriend found Jamie and we hung out with him. And then we came back and we still stayed in touch. And then I would go down to visit. My mother never knew I was going down to visit. So, because, and we would just still stayed friends. And, and then I got married and I had my daughter. So, and then when I decided I was getting divorced, I was married to an artist and I decided, okay, I had enough. And I left him and he called me because he used to come up and watch the tennis. He played tennis, Jamie. And he called and he said, hey, I'm coming up for the Tournament of Champions. And then on that first phone call, he's at the end of it, he said, oh, and by the way, will you marry me?
On the phone.
And I said, yeah. And I said, what? I just left someone. No, I want to get married again. Are you crazy? And then he kept asking me. And then finally I was like, yeah, okay, ask me in 2 years. And I had gotten, I worked for Fox. It was Metro Media before. And I had just kind of gotten into the engineering department and just started making like decent money. I was like, I don't know. And I even went to a therapist to say, what am I doing with my life? And so I did move, but I took a 6-month leave of absence. I told my boss, if it don't work, I don't come back home.
Ultimately, you planned a wedding. You had your wedding in New York.
A wedding in New York.
And you went to Puerto Rico for your honeymoon.
And got mugged in Puerto Rico on the beach like the one last night. I was like, this is not a way to start a marriage.
It's not an easy road from the beginning.
No, this is it. This is the worst, I guess. It only could get better, hopefully.
Well, it did get better because he went on to become a professional man. He had, GS-15, the top level in the government at Social Security Administration. Your career took off at Fox Television, New York, then Washington, D.C. You were living a good life, cycling. Tell me about that.
We went to Europe a few times biking and in Italy, through Vermont. We biked a lot. We traveled some, to the Caribbeans and all that stuff we did together. We had fun. We moved. He kept saying it would be closer for me to commute because he retired. He retired at 55. And I kept saying, and that was his whole thing. I'm retired at 55. I can be able to go play tennis. But then I started noticing little things, and it probably, if I go back, I probably started noticing them before he retired. But I just thought, okay, because it wasn't that bad. Then I thought like he was going through a change of life because I'm thinking, he's getting in contact with all these friends, even old girlfriends. Like he's getting in contact. I'm like, what is going on with you? I couldn't understand. And like even like watching a movie, we could watch a movie and I say something about it. He goes, I never seen this. Like, yeah, we did. We saw this. And then I find one thing. Even as it progressed, you can't argue with somebody with dementia. But when it first starts, you don't think that. You like want to pull them back. You want to be like, no, and you're like almost arguing.
Yeah, I'm going through that with my mother. My mother has dementia as well. And we went through a phase where, you're trying to correct everything and be rational. And you can't. You can't.
And when we went to the doctor for a checkup, I finally said to him, something's not right. And he said, oh. And then he went, well, to appease your wife, why don't you go see this neurologist? And so we went, and that doctor ended up saying, he's fine. And I was like, you don't live with him. You don't. No, he's not. And then he argued with me. The doctor said, I'm fine. The doctor said, I'm fine. Leave me alone. I'm fine. And he cursed me out. And I'm like, gee, you really need to go get checked up. So 6 months passed, 6 more months. And he went back for the checkup. And the doctor said, no, I think something's wrong. And I said, oh, I've been telling y'all something's wrong. And then when the doctor told me that, he cursed me out again because I'm going to tell that doctor he shouldn't have told you anything. And I'm like, Jamie, he's just doing it for your benefit. He's just saying, go get a check. It could be anything, but you should get a check. And he said, go to Hopkins. But when I went back to our doctor, he told me another doctor, and I kept trying to make an appointment, but he had been on Dr. Oz. So everybody wanted to go to him. So I couldn't get an appointment. And so finally I was like, do you have another doctor there? And they're like, yeah. They said, it's a woman. I'm like, is she pretty? They're like, yeah. I said, well, maybe he'll pay. I said, he was like, yeah. So we went. And they do like all these tests where they put these clamps on their head. And I remember, so they told me I had to get a blood test for him. He had to get a PET scan. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get him to get this? So I called the people to make the PET scan. I said, when I come in, can you make it seem like I'm getting it too? And they said, okay, we could do that. So when I came in, I told him, we both have to get this. The doctor said we have to get it. He said, okay. He agreed. So when I did, they put me in a back room. I read a book and he got his test done. And then I went on our way home. I said, oh, I forgot, did my blood test already. You need to go get a blood test. He said, oh, okay. So as long as you remember along and it's a pleasant kind of conversation. So I got the blood test done. I can't even remember all, the beta, the theta, all the parts of the brain. She showed where, because our brain is fed with glucose. So it wasn't going like on these sides. You can see where it was revving very high back here. And they said the brain is very smart. It tries to work. It was revving high, but it was revving high all the time, trying to compensate for what's not working. So, but there's nothing you could do. What can you do? They give you these pills, and the pills weren't helping because there's so many different degrees of Alzheimer's. Okay, because Jamie had hallucinations with his. He saw people. He'd come upstairs sometime like, you left the TV on. Well, that lady and that boy are downstairs watching. And I'd be like, what lady, what boy? And then I'm like, finally I would get like, well, you need to introduce them to me because they got to pay rent. I do it. And he would get mad at me. He would get mad at me. And it's just a lot. It's a shock, I think, at first for you. And there was times you would see him come back. Like he would be not Jamie, and then sometimes he would be Jamie. Like you would see it, and he would tell me, I went outside and I didn't recognize anything, and it scared me. Or he'd remember things from the past. He would be crying sometimes, like things that he didn't like or didn't like that happened when he was a child. Like he would like remember these things. And so I always tell people, luckily I was someone in his past, because I think if I was like a new wife, he wouldn't have known me at all. So I always got either I was the woman who ran the facility, because in the hallucination, this was a house that the government replicated. And how did the government know to get the same pieces of art? And I'd be like, and then sometimes I go, yeah, I am the woman that runs the place. I am her. And sometimes he would get combative with me. And I would have to learn to calm it down, because Jamie, he would hit or get very kind of volatile. So you'd have to like watch his temperament and know when to back off from him. So after so much of that and, or him grabbing me or something, I finally said, I can't do it. I have to put him in a home. And even there, they told me we could handle him. And even there, I got called all the time. Like, I thought y'all could handle him. And it's like, no, sometimes you need to come. I was like, oh my God, I pay you all this money and I still got to come. Because once they lock that door and you're in a closed facility, the price of being in a home goes up so much. It goes, at that time, you're talking about 7, 8 years ago, it was like $8,000 a month.
It's more now.
It's more now. And then I saw places that were higher. I mean, you can go higher, you can go lower, but do you want your parent or your spouse there? Some of those places you're like, no, I don't want you there.
Before you decided to put him in a home, which is, I know, very, very difficult. I'm caring for my mom. It's different when it's your spouse. It's the person you're intimate with. It's the person that has your secrets, the person you share a bed with. How in the world do you navigate all of that when that person is changing in such drastic and profound ways?
Well, you think like an intimate way. I remember thinking, I remember asking him once, I was like, so who am I to you? And he'd go, you're a friend. I said, oh, I'm a friend. I said, I don't have sex with a friend. So it would go back and forth. I think I gave you a picture, and you saw where it said a rose and it said, I love you. That was at that home he wrote that. And I remember that he was in 2 homes, that I took him out of that one. I went the first time I took him there, and I remember, I don't know if you remember, I can't remember the name of this movie, about a husband and wife. She had it.
Yes, I remember. It's called Away From Her.
And he put her in a home. And when he came back, they told him to stay away for 30 days, right? And when he came back, she had attached herself to another man in the home. Him and I think Olympia Dukakis was the man. And they had to watch their spouses all of a sudden like develop this relationship. I remember when I went to this home, I said, do I have to stay away for any period? And they said, yeah, maybe about a week, just to let him get acclimated. And I said, okay. And when I came back in a week, he saw me, he jumped up. And he was like, it's my wife, and my wife. And he came up to me and he had tears in his eye. And I felt so bad. I felt so bad, almost like a son. I felt so bad for putting him away, but I couldn't bring him home. So I was just like, okay. But we had this person who was Jamie was very smart. But I would get like books for youngster and try to have her read it and see them skip words and not know this word. And I have like writings that he wrote where you just didn't make sense, or how he wrote didn't make sense.
How did you care for yourself through all of that? Because you had to hold him up, you had to hold yourself together, your household together, yeah, and go to work, right, and nurture your career.
It was, and I worked at Fox. At a time, I was the shop steward and business agent. So we were going to negotiations in New York back and forth. I still was doing my acting a little bit, and that only kept me together a little bit. Couldn't go hardly to the gym anymore. People would see me in the gym. They're like, where you been? I'm like, if I can get in here, I can. But that slacked totally, because I had a caregiver in the house with me, and she would get here so I could go to work, and she would be here 12 hours. So by the time I got back home, I had about another hour with her or so, and she left. And I had brought my daughter home. I thought she would help me, and that didn't help. I probably added more to my stress at the time. So, and then my grandson. So he would be here every other week with us. And so it was just a lot. And then sometimes when I think back at all that, I was like, how did you do that? I meditated a lot, as much as I could. I tried to go within myself to get a little bit of peace. I would meditate outside at Channel 5 for 5 minutes. Like before I would go in, I would sit there in the truck and be quiet, just not to go in and want to yell at everybody at work. And it only take, at Fox, it took 10 minutes, you back to being what you were. So it would be like, ugh. So I didn't have any downtime, no period of rest for me. So it just was very stressful. And like we said, going through, at this age, you're going through menopause. I didn't have time to be but so crazy.
Coworkers, you see them, you don't know what's going on at home. You don't know why they may be changing and may be different. What did you learn through this process? I want to take people through some of these steps, the more practical advice that you could give them. So let's just run through some things. I guess you had a support group or some sort of counsel that guided you, and not everybody has that, so you're fortunate in that way. But an umbrella policy, why was that necessary?
Well, I mentioned that Jamie hit people. So I did not want him to hit someone and someone decide to sue me and then lose the house because he hit someone. I also put the house in trust. I joined, there's Alzheimer's groups like all over. So you can find them, and they're in every county, everywhere. You just got to find a time that fits for you. So they helped me a lot. And most of them were parents. There weren't many of them that had, it was their husband. And they're the ones who said, you need a lawyer. Go see a lawyer and get your house put in trust. You need to stop him from driving, because he was still driving. And he drove stick shift. So they were like, and they said, but you can't. They said, don't you do it. Don't you tell him. Either get a guy to tell him, or the doctor to tell him, or someone to tell him he can't drive. And so it was a mess. And this doctor looked at his paperwork, me not realizing that he was looking at old paperwork. And he said, oh, he can drive. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, what? And so he kept driving. And then finally, I was going to New York. My sister had passed, and I was going to get her ashes. And we were going up. And I kept telling him to get in the car, we got to go. And I said, okay, we've been through this. You stay home then. He drove to New York and got his car and drove up. And then he got to his father's house. And within he's like, I got to go. Antoinette doesn't know I'm here. And then he decided to drive back home. So I'm trying to find him. And finally he's driving home, and then his phone died and we couldn't find him. And I'm calling the police. So I didn't get my sister's ashes, drove all the way back with my grandson and daughter back to Maryland, called the police. They're like, oh, you needed to do this in New York. I said, you got to be kidding me. And it was a woman. She goes, okay, calm down. So she finally said, well, call the Delaware police, call this. She took his picture. She put it out. And finally, he went somewhere in Avondale, Pennsylvania, I think. That night, because now a whole day has passed, and another night I get a call, and I see it's his number, and this woman's like, oh, you have your husband. Well, he pulled in somebody's yard, and he was hallucinating that his sister was in the car with him, and that she couldn't move. So they called the police called the ambulance. She had the sense to charge his phone and got my number and called me. So he tried to drive his car back. We were on Route 1, and he's driving like 20 miles an hour. I'm like, we're going to get killed. And to get him off the road was crazy. I had to get the cops involved. I'm like, pull him over, because he wouldn't pull over. He kept driving very slow. And we got him out and we drove home. And we finally took him back to the doctor. And his assistant is the one who said to me, she said, oh my God, he can't drive. I said, I told y'all that. So you have to take him and have a test done. It was like $200 to test him with the
simulator.
I laughed because she said, can you come in here? Miss Fisher, and can you do this? And I'm like, if I fail it, he's gonna be like, see, she failed too. And so I said, so I did it. She said, see, she did it. Now can you do it? And he couldn't do it. And so because if he passed that, then you had to pay another $300 for them to go out on the road with somebody to see if they could follow. And I'm like, please don't pass this test. And then he got angry at them. And so that's when I finally got his stuff from him. And I just had to sell his cars. He had 2 sports cars. Oh, he was so angry. You need to come get these cars now. I said, come get them now. I got the cars out. And then finally he noticed. He said, where's my car? And I said, oh, I sold them. He said, well, where's my money? I said, in your bank account. He said, oh, okay. He didn't go off, but yeah, he didn't. They put him in the hospital and they tried to, it took 3 shots to calm him down the first day. And they had him in the hospital for like weeks, sedated. It's like he was like a zombie. And I finally took him to another doctor who's more natural. And we took him off all those pills. And we gave him more natural. And he was more himself, but still it was he was declining. But he was better at controlling him. But he still hit people. So the last time he hit me, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I had to find another home. And again, I'm getting called all the time. And that's where he just declined more. And it just got worse. He got really thin. He was thinner than I was. It's just a lot. So yes, I did join a group. Yes, I did find a therapist. I did find a lawyer to help me write up a trust for the home. And I did get an umbrella policy. I asked my agent, I said, something to cover me extra. I know it's hard, but long-term care insurance, the younger you get it, the less expensive it is. If you have it, it helps a lot because that helped pay for it. Luckily, Jamie had a good pension because he worked for like a 15 in the government. So he had a good pension. If he was still alive, I would probably still be working. So it's a lot, but if you can get long-term care insurance, please do. Even to bring caregivers in the house because you got to pay them. Caregivers in the house sometimes, to me, aren't always the best because a lot of them want someone old that doesn't want to do much. Jamie was not that. He was a mover. He was an athlete, so he wanted to exercise. So you couldn't just sit him in the house and say, let's watch TV. He's not going to do it. And they didn't want to do that. It was a lot. Like, take him for a walk. Just get him out the house and talk to him because we said, she's not paying me any attention. He would go, she doesn't talk to me. And I tell her, if you're going to walk with him, even if you're going to talk about the trees, talk to him about something. Just don't be on your phone and thinking he's going for a walk. Because he ran, and he walked off from her. And of course, he's in better shape. So if I had not had long-term care insurance, I probably would have either had to retire and stay home with him myself.
Is there anything that you wish people would have done for you or said to you to help in some way? Because I'm sure that all of us try our best to say the right thing, to do the right thing, but you don't really know what to do. And maybe you don't even contact that person anymore because it's so uncomfortable. What would you say to them?
It's such a hard thing to me to ask. That's not me. To ask someone to help me with him, I don't think I would have. Like his sister had said that she'd come down. She came down a couple of times. She would want to say, okay, I'm going to try to give you a break. But, like I said, she came down a couple of times. That didn't help on the weekends. It was me. My daughter kept saying, Mommy, I feel like there's an umbilical cord connected to you. I know. I don't know. I don't even know how to ask. I don't even know how to ask somebody. Because I had friends who would say, Antoinette, do you need anything? And maybe you had to do a run somewhere. I remember there was a company that tried to do things like if you wanted to go get your nails done, they would come babysit for you for a couple of hours if you need. But sometimes you just need to get out. Sometimes you just need to breathe and just not be thinking like, I'm really worried about this person. Can I enjoy myself for a minute at least? Because I said, I felt like I never had downtime. And, like I said, being sometimes a shop steward, a business agent, you had to do disciplinary meetings at work. And I'd be looking at these guys at work saying, can you just work? Just like, but you had to do these meetings and thinking and then I got to go home to that. And you're not really resting. Because at one point I did leave the bedroom and sleep in another room because I was like, I can't sleep in there. And so it's just a hard thing.
It is a hard thing. So can you take us through the time when he was about to pass? Were you with him?
Well, I was there that day. The nurse at the upstairs, she was the best. She would dance with him. And I'd be there and he'd dance and we'd walk with him. I remember the, the 2 days maybe have passed. And they said, no, he's not eating. He's not doing that. I'm like, wait, I was just there. He was eating. He was dancing. What are you talking about? He's not. And I came and could see they were like, he's not drinking. And I came in and I was like, you want some water? And I gave him, and they're like, oh, we have some applesauce. He ate the applesauce. He was eating it. I said, well, he is hungry. I came that day. He wasn't eating food again. Then it was like back and forth, back and forth. And then he got to the point where he closed his eyelids and he didn't remember to open his eyes. I would go, your sister's here, and he'd hear her voice and he'd turn. And I go, you can open your eyes. Open your eyes, you can see. And he wouldn't do it. He would just hear people and like turn. And so you could watch him get worse. His friends were coming up to visit him. And then he went into that rattle, that like that. And I'm like, oh my God. And I remember his sister had slipped in, and I remember he was doing that night. And I remember saying to him, let go, in his ear. I said, just don't. You're working really hard. Just let go. Go with your mom. I know he was a mama's boy. I was like, go with your mom. I went home and I got up like 4 o'clock that morning, and because they were saying he had a few more days, and they called me and said he was gone before I got back. So when I got back at like 6. When I got my stuff and got there, he was still warm, but he was gone. And his dad was here. And no, his sisters were here. And then he was gone. But also another thing, if you want to have an autopsy done, I didn't realize you had to plan that before. You cannot say you want it done there. They're like, oh, you didn't set that up. I'm like, it's so much you don't think about because you're all in the throes of what you're doing. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, then we'll never know. I was like, because I wanted them to see where all this was happening in his brain. And they were like, no, we can't do it. So
You have to establish that ahead of time.
yeah, you have to establish all that ahead of time. So if that's what you think you need done, then you have to set all that up. Yeah.
How are you doing now? How is Antoinette now?
It took a minute because I said, like, at work, I dropped everything. Like that January, I wasn't business agent. February, he died. I went away. I had a trip planned in March to go to Thailand, and I was getting ready to cancel it. And when he passed, I'm like, I gotta go. So I went. And I came back April, and I kicked my daughter out the house. Yes, she was just losing it. And I was like, you got to go. And May, I retired. So I went from total chaos to total, I'm by myself sitting in this house. And I remember, I said I'd do some acting. And I remember one of my teachers said, read The Artist's Way. I don't know if you ever read that book, The Artist's Way.
No, I haven't. What is that?
Yeah, it's a book. It's like a manual, and it tells you tells you about journaling. And it tells you to treat your artist in you. Like, go out and do something you've never done. I hate heights. I went ziplining, screaming the whole time. I did I went and did sipping painting. I wanted to do race cars, but I ended up just going to the trolley, the cars going around the track. I did but I would take your artist out. Take your artist out to dinner. Treat yourself. So I started doing that. Started journaling. Started even meditating more. And started just trying to clear myself. And I did. And then it was a trip to Morocco. So that this November, I went to Morocco. So I was there for like 18 days. And like I said, I retired. I didn't have to deal with the station anymore. I just had to deal with me. And it's hard to look at yourself sometimes. But you have to look at you, what you contributed. Go outside and stand in the dirt. Ground yourself. That's what my daughter would always say. Go outside and stand in the dirt, Mom. So I would do all this trying to find the better me or the happier inside of myself. And I'm still doing that. It's been 7 years. It's over 7 years. I am dating again, another artist. Again.
Were you scared? Were you scared
about dating?
Though? Yeah, about, putting your heart back out there. You've been, through a lot for someone you love.
I know. I don't know so much that I was scared. I welcomed some company in your life. It was so, I think because it was like 8 years, people always say when I say, oh, my husband passed, they go, oh, I feel sorry. And I was like, it's life. I've got to a place in my life where I think birth, death, I try to look at it that way as part of life. It's sad because they're not here anymore with you. My parents both passed 30 some years ago. So I dealt with them passing away. And it hurt when my mom was gone. Driving to New York, I would cry over The horizontal bridge, I'd cry across the whole daggone bridge because I didn't want to go to New York, and because my mother wasn't there anymore. But, and eventually that starts. It's there, you miss them. And there's times, there's things like I remember our trip bike riding in Italy, or when we went to Paris. And even though he was kind of in a little bit of the Alzheimer's then, we rode through the Versailles, we had a picnic, you did those things. So there's good memories. But I would always say, there was 8 years of going through all of that before, and he's gone. So really count like 15 years. And you're watching the person you love disappear in front of you. They disappear. They're not that person anymore.
And you're grieving. You're grieving
Right.
over that
You've been
long stretch of
grieving
time.
for a long time. So it's like a long time of watching that person go. So, but to tell the truth, because and I don't know if your mother, she may be a sweeter person. Sometimes they say some nasty things. They can say some nasty things to you where you're like, oh my God. And there was the times that I even like, if he ever like snapped out of this or became better, would I have stayed with him? I don't know. That was a question I would ask because it hurt. There were times that it just hurt me. And I stayed because you don't leave because someone is sick.
Absolutely.
Right. So, but I would want him to get better. I tell people all diseases are bad. This one to me seemed like it hits everybody all over. I mean, you're watching the person be alive, not really being there.
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
It's painful.
It's horrible. Like, I'm not gonna say all diseases are horrible,
Yeah.
but this one, and it's mental. When you dealing with, you're at another level when you deal with the mental. So you got to be mentally strong. And I tell people how I met with Alzheimer's that they felt like, yes, this is your partner, should be there for them, you should help them. But some people go all out and they stay with them all the time and they give themselves no time. And you have to breathe. You have to give yourself a minute. You cannot be that like a saint or whatever. You can't because it tears you down. And the next thing you know, after all this passed, you sick.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It takes its toll because caregivers, they get sick, they die early, they turn to alcohol and drugs and a number of things, and depression happens as well. It's one of those things you have to find the balance, even if it makes you feel guilty because you're taking some time for yourself. I mean, I don't know if you experience that, but the guilt is a real thing.
Yeah, it is. And you almost feel guilty that they're sick. Did I do something? Sometimes people didn't believe it. His friends didn't believe it. His friends thought that we went away to the Outer Banks with another friend of his and his wife. We stayed like a week. And before I left, he said, Antoinette, I have to apologize to you. And I said, why? He said, I thought you were exaggerating. He saw it for himself because when he would see him for an hour or so, he thought he was fine. I'm like, no, you got to know it's real. It's not. Yeah. So he was like, I'm sorry.
They mask. It's masking.
Yeah.
You could do that for an hour.
Do. Yeah. And he would be like, hi, how you doing? But he couldn't, after a while, you notice he couldn't hold a conversation. They couldn't hold it for so long. Hello, past that. And they're kind of excited they recognize you. And then after that, he would just be real quiet after a while. A friend of his from work came and he's high and da-da-da-da-da. And as we're walking up the stairs, I said, do you remember her? He goes, no, I don't.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we prepare to wrap up here, anything else that you want to share, lessons learned, to say it's going to be okay, you're going to get through it, and there is life on the other side?
Yes, there is life. You just do what you can from your heart. You're doing it from your heart, and make sure they're fine. And if you can get help, please get help. Reach out to people. Like I said, I don't like asking people, but don't be me. Reach out to whoever, somebody will step up, even if it's just for a couple of hours, to even take a bath, to even do something where you can spend a little time with yourself. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Antoinette, thank you so much. We really appreciate you sharing your story. I know it's going to make a difference because for somebody, they're just beginning this journey. And if they can just have a little bit of the road laid out ahead of them and follow what people have already gone through and learn some of those lessons, I know it's helpful. It's got to be.
Yeah, it got to be. And that's blessings to you and your mom. I mean.
Oh, thanks. Well, listen, we wish you the best. Exciting about your acting career that is just taken off. Thank you, Antoinette. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with actress and caregiver Antoinette Green Fisher. Here are today's top takeaways. If you suspect that your spouse may be showing signs of dementia, document the symptoms. Try to rule out other causes that might mimic dementia and get a medical diagnosis so you can deal with driving and other safety concerns. Align yourself with a knowledgeable support group and seek legal counsel to guide you through umbrella policies, putting your home in a trust, and, we didn't really get into this, but making medical plans, including organ donation, which might be affected by a dementia diagnosis. Well, that does it for this episode. Remember to exercise, eat right, and seek joyful moments. Caregivers, as we saw from our global reach, our community is growing. You are not alone. Special thanks to A Beautiful Chorus. You can find them at beautifulchorus.com. Candy Marketing Store and Emma McNeil for graphics. Visit our YouTube channel and don't forget to subscribe.